Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi, Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, an MLS roundup, NWSL expansion, Sheryl Crow, FA Cup, Jesse, Holland, senior year, Cuban sandwiches, music, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you on this Monday, May 16th in the year 2022?
I am doing well. I'm still buzzing from Friday night, which was one of the great nights of my life.
Oh, boy. Well, then you're going to have to tell us about it.
Sir Paul McCartney.
Oh, you went and saw Sir Paul.
Yes.
Where was he playing again?
SoFi Stadium.
SoFi Stadium. Multi-billion-dollar construction. How was it for a concert?
Fantastic. The venue lived up to the billing, and Sir Paul did not disappoint. 2.5 hours, played all the hits, Beatles, non-Beatles. I was thoroughly engrossed throughout. There were a couple moments I levitated when he's playing Hey Jude and Let It Be and Live and Let Die, and I couldn't believe I was sitting there watching Paul McCartney play those songs.
Amazing, right? What was his stage patter like? Like in between songs, did he talk to people, tell stories, do that kind of stuff, or no? He just plays to the
No, he did. I mean, this man's charisma is just off the charts. He told a great story about Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. He did a tribute to John Lennon and one to George Harrison. He was in command the whole evening. He was phenomenal.
Any opening act or?
No,
it's Sir Paul, and that's it, right?
Sir Paul, and that's it.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm jealous. That sounds like a very cool concert to go to. Have you watched anything?
I've started this show, The Offer, on Paramount Plus, which is about the making of The Godfather.
I saw it advertised. Yep.
The show is not that great, but it's a fascinating story. It's got me Googling and learning about the story. I did not realize all the drama surrounding the making of that movie, the fact that the mafia was completely opposed to it, and there were death threats, and the producer of the movie had to meet with Joe Colombo and strike a deal where they wouldn't mention the word mafia in the script. Frank Sinatra was also upset because the Johnny Fontaine character he felt like was based on him, and so he tried to shut down the movie. It was an incredible story.
Interesting. While you're not recommending the movie version of this, you are oftentimes behind the scenes there are other podcasts or books or something like that. So maybe that's what you have to go with in order to get the actual story that's much more entertaining than what you're watching right now, right?
Correct. The only other thing I'll mention is, and I haven't mentioned this the last couple of weeks, but I love that Stanley Tucci show on CNN, Searching
Food
for Italy.
Right? Yep.
Yes. So another episode last night. I can't get enough of that show. He goes to a different region in Italy every week, and he did Umbria in this most recent episode. He did Veneto and Piedmonte already this season. So I don't know if you watched that, but I absolutely love it. It makes me so hungry watching it. The food looks so delicious.
I just, in the lobby, I ran into Colin Coward, and he was talking about how international he is now because he just came back from Italy. He had a wonderful time in Italy. He was asking what my favorite city was. And so I was talking to him about, even a place like Milan, which is much more industrial, and I still like it. It's really a fun place to be. But we were talking about Rome and stuff like that. But obviously the food was wonderful, and he can't wait to get back to Italy. All right, I was all over the map this week when it comes to watching, but I do have a bunch of different things out there. Number one. On Showtime, I think it is, the Sheryl Crow documentary. And Sheryl Crow, wonderful artist, goes through her career. It's a really interesting story. And I actually have a Sheryl Crow story. I was on, in 1994, I was on The Tonight Show. At that point, it was with Jay Leno. And Sheryl Crow was the artist, was the musical artist of the night. I actually have a picture of me and Sheryl Crow. Maybe I'll send it over to folks, or I'll tweet it out. Little girl with just an incredible voice, and she was just starting out. But the story about how she came to be, and the writing behind it, and then her pathway to not just success but superstardom is pretty amazing. And so that's what that documentary was about. Another one on Amazon, The Unsolved Murder of Beverly Lynn Smith, is this crazy story up in Canada of a murder of a young woman that is still to this day, quote unquote, unsolved. They certainly have people that they suspect, but it's a nutty story. There's one on Netflix called Our Father, which is this documentary about this woman who went and did one of those Ancestry.com, 23andMe types of things, and comes to find out she has not just relatives, but half sisters and brothers all over the place. And she comes to find out that her mother, who had gone for fertility treatments, ended up being impregnated without her knowledge from the actual doctor that she went to. And this monster basically did it upwards of almost 100 different people when to this point that they've found out. So that's a crazy documentary. And then two movies. One, Operation Mincemeat with Colin Firth, really good, about spy and intrigue in World War II and the British steps that they took to divert attention of the Nazis at a crucial time in the war. That's really good, and Colin Firth is always good in everything that he does. And then Senior Year, which is just a fun story with Rebel Wilson about this cheerleader in like the year 2000 that falls on her head and goes into a coma for 20 years and then wakes up and still is obviously in the mindset of a cheerleader as a 18-year-old kid, but is in her 30s and stuff like that, and hijinks ensue. But it's not as dumb as it kind of sounds. Yes, the premise has been done in many, many movies, but there's a nice little twist on this, and it's fun to see how somebody who, in my world, is not that long ago, wakes up in the world that we inhabit today, and so many things are different, and so many things that would have been acceptable back in the year 2000, let's say, that aren't today, and how far we've come in a very short period of time. So, I recommend all of those things. Anything else, my friend?
Hearing great things about Severance. So I'm probably going to watch that at some point. Luis Aguilar is nodding, so he must be a fan.
It must be good.
And then your wife, still watching My Brilliant Friend?
Yes, she is still watching all of that. She still is right there with you on a lot of your recommendations. Although my wife, I love her, and she's my best critic in terms of she listens to stuff and watches stuff, and when she says something, I listen to her because she doesn't always say stuff. But she wanted me to stop pausing as much on the podcast. And so if that is a problem for you or anybody else out there that's listening, I apologize. I have a list of things that I try not to do. Saying our game, we've talked about that before. Saying absolutely, the like, and type of situations. Now I'm going to try not to pause. And she rightly said, I understand that you're trying to think of what you want to say, but we were talking about it today. And as I said, I love the constructive criticism that she gives me because I know it comes from a place that she wants me to do better. And it's not just nitpicking or having absolutely everything. And when she says it, it's directed and focused. So
find out from her if she prefers Elena Greco or Rafaela Cerullo.
Okay. I will make sure I ask her that.
Lenu and Lila.
These are characters in this, right? Okay, yeah. I will find out. She listens, so she's probably listening right now because she will have put this in, and she's maybe commenting on the pauses that I am taking. But she listens, so she will probably answer your question directly before I even have to ask her.
And I believe she has my number. She
might even go directly to you. She might even text you or call you, and bypass the middleman here. All right. Anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
All right. Let's light this candle, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Where do you want to start here? MLS Roundup.
Yes.
Okay. Which games do you want to start? Because there were all sorts of games, and we could plow through them all, or we could be specific. What do you want to do?
Well, Luis Aguilar, the first game he has in the rundown is Galaxy FC Dallas. Luis is quite taken by this Jesus Ferreira story. 2 more goals for him. Arriola got the other. Douglas Costa pulled one back, but it didn't matter. Big win for Dallas. They've surged up the Western Conference standings. Jesus Ferreira now getting a lot of MVP talk alongside guys like Mihailovic, Lucho Acosta, Driussi. What do you think? Is he worthy of all the praise he's getting?
Yeah, he's absolutely worthy of the praise. And this is a team that is worthy of our attention. This is a Dallas team that for a number of years was irrelevant. And now they are more than relevant. And that they came into Los Angeles and they beat a very good Los Angeles Galaxy team. And Jesús Ferreira continues to score is great. We've talked already about how this false nine-ish thing from the national team as it relates to the national team does give me cause for concern, or at least pause. But you got a guy that's scoring goals. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. And it's fun to watch. It's entertaining.
When we describe somebody as a false nine, implicit in that is that he might not get you as many goals, but it's the other things he does. At what point does that criticism become outdated with Jesús Ferreira? And maybe you can have the best of both worlds with him if he's also going to be this kind of goal scorer.
It does. And a peek behind the curtain here. We are efforting. We are efforting to get Jesús Ferreira on the program. All right. And, I think we got a good chance of doing that. And we'll talk to him about these things. But this is a player that is feeling it right now. I mean, there were moments in that LA Dallas game where they just cut the Galaxy to shreds. And not only their speed with the ball, their speed without the ball, but also their efficiency. I mean, they went from goalkeeper to goal on the other side of the field in a matter of seconds and just torched a Galaxy team that was all out of sorts. And yes, you can say it's part of the Galaxy's fault, but I think it's also coming up against a Dallas team that just keeps getting better and better. And you have somebody up top that you can rely on who is going to score in different ways. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing, obviously, for Dallas. This is a good thing for Greg Berhalter, and it's fun to watch. This is a team that you would pay money to see because of the entertaining style in which they play.
Colorado beat LAFC 2-0. Zardes and Rubio both from the penalty spot. Matt Doyle raised this issue on Twitter. I'll ask you about it. Everything we hear in terms of Carlos Vela is that they've already agreed a deal and it's a formality. He's definitely staying. If that contract hasn't been signed yet, are you 100% sure he's still a player that's worthy of some massive DP deal? Wasn't great in this game. Hasn't been that great the last several weeks. And
I think he's still worthy. No. I think he is still good enough when he is on the field and on the field consistently. And I'm not sure. Yeah. I think that I don't think they can afford necessarily not to have him unless they're going to go in a completely different direction. So yeah, I do think that he is worthy, and I still think the LAFC is a possibly elite team, and this is just a blip type of scenario. But Colorado, to their credit, they deserved the win. They got the goals that they need. They created those penalties. It's easy to say, well, it's just penalties, but they created those penalties, and they beat a very, very good LAFC team. But if LAFC continues on through the year, and they have a Carlos Vela, if and when he is signed and continues on, and he's not performing on the field, yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem for any team. We talk so much, and coaches each and every week lament the fact when their big stars, their big designated players aren't performing. And when that happens, very, very quickly it can go south.
We have a new first-place team in the Eastern Conference. Montreal currently atop the table. They beat Charlotte 2-0. Another goal from Mihailovic. We've had this conversation about whether Austin are for real, and we need to start having it about Montreal. We all talked about how playing in CCL affected Seattle and NYCFC, but that eventually those two teams would shoot up. Well, Montreal is another example of that, off to a sputtering start because of CCL, but ever since they've been focusing exclusively on MLS, they've been lights out. I mean, how good is this team?
Montreal is the real deal, and they deserve our attention. If I were to give you my top 5 teams, and I guess power rankings, we call them all sorts of different things. If I were to give them to you right now, I would have Montreal at the top. Won 6 out of their last 7. They haven't lost in their last 8 games. And they come off of that 2-0 win away in Charlotte. And look, Charlotte is not a great team, but it's still, you're going into a difficult environment. And they have arguably an MVP candidate in Georgi Mihailovic. So yeah, this is again, this is also a fun team to watch, and for Wilfried Nancy, who has done an incredible job coming in over the last couple of years. Because he came in a weird situation where Thierry Henry left, and he's not only done a good job, but he's made this team a team that we have to pay attention to. So they would be number one on my top 5. I would probably then put our friends Dallas. As we said, they won in Los Angeles, and they'd be number 1 in my most entertaining team. But in terms of power ranks, I would probably have them at number 2. I would still put LAFC probably at number 3. And I still believe in them, and I still think Steve Cherundolo understands exactly what to do, and maybe more importantly, what not to do. It's not that they're going to win every single game. Then I would probably have to put Cincinnati, 4 wins in a row. And I know that blows our mind to put Cincinnati in anything remotely resembling a best of when it comes to Major League Soccer, given their history. But they're flying right now. And if this is a power ranking, that's a position of power to be flying. And then I would probably put, let's see, how about NYCFC? 4 out of their 5 have been wins. 4 of the last 5 have been wins, and they get another win against Columbus. So that would be my 5.
Yeah, Cincinnati beat Chicago. Lucho Acosta with a late winner. I mentioned earlier, I think he's an early MVP candidate. NYCFC beat Columbus 2-0. Thales Magno and Castellanos with the goals. You look at the Eastern Conference right now, and even by MLS standards, you've got 5 teams separated by 1 point. Montreal, Orlando, and Philadelphia are all on 20, and then Cincinnati and the Red Bulls are on 19. And NYCFC is at 17 with fewer games played than everybody else I just mentioned. I think they're the best team in the East, and we're going to look up in a couple of weeks and they're going to be in first place. So, but it's amazing how packed together it is at the top there in the Eastern Conference.
It's what you want, right? I mean, it's what you want from an MLS that is designed to create parity and create competition. And I think ultimately the people, whether it's the fans of the teams or the fans of the league, they're getting multiple teams. I've said for now, as we have talked about this, I've said this team's interesting, this team's entertaining, this is a fun team to watch. That's good. The more of those types of teams that we have, I think the better off we are. Any other games specific that you want to go into here?
Yes, Portland beat SKC 7-2. Sebastian Blanco, phenomenal, 2 goals, 2 assists. Young Brazilian Natan Fogaça with 2 goals on his MLS debut. On the other side, MLS Buzz had an interesting tweet I saw this morning comparing Peter Vermes' situation to Arsene Wenger late in his Arsenal career. Is there something to that? This legend who, you want to treat with respect, but you have to be careful that maybe he overstays his welcome. Is there anything to that, or that's unfair to Peter?
I would think that if Peter was here, he would not only laugh at that, but then actually look at it as a form of an incredible compliment. I mean, Arsene Wenger is one of the great managers in history, so much so that he was given the longest leash ever out of reverence and respect for what he had done. Some would say maybe too long, and it's, Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? But I think the same is going to apply to a Peter Vermes. And it's not that he can do no wrong, and it's not that he can't be responsible for this team and for the problems that this team has here. It's just that I do think that he has compiled such a body of work, and so much of it successful, and a lot of it isn't even having to do with the scores and the wins out there. It's how iconic he has become and how much he has come to represent and embody the culture of that club, that I would be flabbergasted. I am not often flabbergasted, but I would be flabbergasted, Mosse, if anything were to come to Peter Vermes in terms of a moving on, firing, sacking, reassigning, whatever it would end up being. But obviously this is started out as a terrible year. It continues to be a terrible year, and I'm not sure that this is going to be anything by the time October and November rolls around other than considered a terrible year.
Last one for me, another goal for Taxi. DC United, 2-2 against Inter Miami. This guy, greatest player of Greek heritage ever to play in MLS. Have you been...
Well, we got Teddy Chronopoulos, who might have something to say, and there's plenty of Greeks that have been involved in Major League Soccer. But yeah, I mean, they didn't spend a lot of money for him, and he's come in and he's been involved in almost all of the goals over the last few games. And it's one thing to come out of the chute and surprise everybody, and then kind of everybody figures out, all right, we know who this guy is now, we know what he's all about, and yet he's just continued to say, it's on my shoulders, and I'm going to produce. And so again, one of the front runners for, I guess, would be newcomer of the year when it comes to Major League Soccer. Yeah, awesome, great find.
And then RSL beat Austin, but Austin made news by giving Josh Wolf a 3-year contract extension. Have you seen enough good work from him that you think this is warranted?
Yes, I think that when Josh Wolf is hired, he is hired as a project. He is hired as a multiple-year type of individual who, like we talked about Peter Vermes, I mean, not to the extent of Peter Vermes, but you want him to come in and establish a culture. And you recognize that history tells us it's very difficult for an expansion team to do that right from the start. And so what you're looking at in your assessment of Josh Wolf and this team is, are they heading in the right direction? Are they improving? Are they progressing and evolving in a way that you feel that there are better times to come? And you have to say, not just in terms of the results, but yes, in terms of the results of where they are, but also in terms of the maturity that this team has had this year, the way that they have played, the individuals either that have come in and been good, or the individuals that have there and have grown in, your Drusies and these types of players. Yeah, I think that it is. I don't think this is premature to give Josh Wolf some security, but also to again anoint him and say, you are the man that is going to lead this going forward. And these are the types of results, and this is the type of progress that we are going to expect from a coach for Austin FC.
Let's move on from MLS because we have lots to get to.
It was 7 goals, though. There was 7 goals up there in Portland for Sporting KC. Do you call that, what's the thing that, it's the point after, right? It's if you touchdown, because everyone said a touchdown, right? But it's not really a touchdown because a touchdown is only 6 points, right?
We discussed that game.
Yeah, but when you say somebody scored a touchdown, because a lot of people said that they scored a touchdown on him, but they really actually scored a touchdown and then the extra point. Is it the extra point or is it the point after? From a football?
I call it extra point.
You don't
watch football.
Luis, you don't watch football? What are you under? What? Extra point is what we're being told.
So the news that Tom Brady will soon be your Fox Sports colleague, that did nothing for you. That did not move the needle for you. Wow.
You don't watch football at all? What kind of an American are you? You watch soccer. That's my man. That's my man over there.
And then shifting gears to NWSL expansion news. Thoughts on this Grant Wall tweet. 5 MLS ownership groups have strong interest in starting NWSL expansion teams, plus 2 non-MLS groups in MLS cities. This includes MLS owners in Atlanta, Austin, Cincinnati, Salt Lake, and Toronto, and non-MLS owners in Columbus and San Francisco. Boy, NWSL, huh?
I mean, this should come as no surprise given the relative success that NWSL has had. And also, if you look at Major League Soccer, for example, the appreciation of these assets, the valuation of the assets over the years, and how quickly they have, we've lost track. It's not even doubled or tripled or quadrupled. It's so many times, X times what the original investment is or the original value of the team was. You're hoping, as a potential owner of an NWSL team, that you're going to come in for a relatively small expansion fee, and that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, it's going to be worth that much more. And the way that not just women's soccer, but women's sports are trending, that's for a lot of people very enticing. Keep in mind that this is nothing new necessarily as it relates to MLS owners. They have kicked the tires on this over the years, and some have said this is something that we want to do. Some have looked at it as this is a component that is going to make our overall business better. As Jessica Berman quite clearly stated, NWSL and women's soccer is not a charity. It is a business. And so when these MLS owners are looking at this, it may make sense for some. It may make sense, not make sense for others. There may be some that will say, wow, this is a nice to have. It's not a have to have type of situation. And it doesn't enhance our overall business of what we were doing. Or they might say, hey, we need to get our shit together when it comes to our MLS team. to begin with before we had a whole nother team. But this is good. This is good for NWSL, and I think if it is strategically done by MLS owners, and you said Atlanta, Austin, Cincinnati, Salt Lake, Toronto. Well, we know Salt Lake has been around for a while. Austin, it might work for what they are trying to do. Atlanta, just the sheer size of Atlanta lends itself to possibly having that be a success there. And some of the new teams maybe will be looking at it as a much more holistic soccer approach to what they are doing, in that the offering is there not just from a men's perspective, but from a women's perspective. And then we know the youth systems that you have, and recognizing that fan base is ripe for this type of not just competition, but branding opportunity, because this is just an extension of whatever brand you're trying to establish. And if you're coming into a new market or a relatively new market, the more people that are running around with your brand on them in any capacity out there, the better it is for your brand.
One NWSL note from me this weekend. On Friday night, I arrived early to the Paul McCartney concert. I was sitting at my seat waiting for the concert to start. I decided to scroll through Twitter. Every single tweet in my timeline was an angry NWSL fan complaining about bull riding being on instead of an NWSL game. Were you aware of this controversy on Friday night?
If somebody got preempted?
Yeah, I think bull riding, ran.
It was an angry NWSL fan?
Yes.
That's redundant. Okay. No, yeah, I don't, I wasn't watching at the time, but I too was scrolling through, and so I saw that there was this consternation out there about I mean, we as soccer fans and as American soccer fans out there are continually irritated about this and that. And for the most part, TV has been pretty good at adhering to the rules, that you stay with the live sport, even if it cuts into whatever's next. And a lot of times it's soccer that's next. And so you're either pushed back or you're pushed to another channel, and all those things. And soccer people out there, they take it very personally, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It is personal to soccer people out there, regardless of what team or what league you follow. You take it personally when you feel you are being slighted from a broadcast perspective for could be, what was it, Bronco? What would you say?
Bull riding,
or insert your thing, bowling or anything like that. I love bowling. Don't get me wrong. I love bowling. I love bull riding too. That's fun too to watch, but when you want to see the soccer and something else that you have absolutely no desire to see or interest in comes on, it's understandable for people to scream and yell.
Finally, Liga MX, the semifinals are set. It will be Pachuca against America and Atlas versus Tigres. Luis Aguilar's beloved Cruz Azul crashed out in the quarterfinals. They had lost the first leg to Tigres 1-0 at home. Then the second leg, they scored early to take a 1-0 lead, and Tigres had a guy sent off. So Luis Aguilar was getting ideas, but they were not able to score another goal. It finished 1-1 on aggregate. Tigres advances the higher seed. It's actually the 4 highest seeds that are through, so there are no teams left that reach the Liguilla via the repechaje.
People love it when you say that, by the way. I'm getting texts, and
yes,
people really, really enjoy that. We need to make an audio clip of it and give it to people. All right. Anything else?
That is it.
That's it. All right. We'll take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll take a trip around Europe and maybe some other places. Don't go anywhere. All right. We're back, and it's time to take a look over there across the pond. Should we go FA Cup to start off with?
Let's start with the FA Cup final, which was almost a carbon copy of the League Cup final.
Yep.
Chelsea and Liverpool once again played out a very entertaining 0-0 draw, which went to penalties. Liverpool won the League Cup final. You might recall when Kepa skied his penalty. This time around, Tuchel did not do the Kepa move. He kept Mendy in there. And it shows you that as a coach, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because he did it the other way this time and it didn't work either. Liverpool again win the shootout. So the quadruple is still on. They've won the League Cup and the FA Cup this season, and still have the Premier League and the Champions League possibilities. It's their first FA Cup crown since 2006. Chelsea have lost 3 straight FA Cup finals. Christian Pulisic started this game. And his performance has become a big point of controversy because he was clearly Chelsea's most dangerous player, involved in all their best chances, but he didn't put any of them away. So some English pundits have taken this negative view that it shows that he lacks a killer edge. U.S. fans have been pushing back on that. What were your overall feelings about Christian Pulisic's performance in this match?
Well, that he lacked a killer edge in that game, I don't think is up for debate because he didn't score. And if you're in those positions, you need to score, regardless of who you are or what nationality you are. That's nothing. But if you are the only one out there who was even getting in the position to possibly score, to possibly win this game, then yeah, you do deserve more credit than others. And I'm not saying you don't deserve to be criticized for it, but if it's not one thing, it's something else. And so it's not that he was bad. It's that he was bad in the moment that he needed to score goals. Fair enough. If that's your worry, and if he's the only one that's actually doing that, then actually he was the best bad player, if you will. But nobody's going to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially if you're an American player. Speaking of American players, later on this week, I should have told you this at the top of the show, we will have Matt Turner, so look for that. But he talked a little bit about, the expectations and, the perception of players and all that. And so for Christian Pulisic, that he is being criticized should come as no surprise. That he is being criticized for not putting the ball in the back of the net, which is ultimately his job, should come as no surprise. That there is this either very, very clear and overt type of way, or really under the surface or implied way of saying that this is an American player, and that's part of the criticism, should also, by the way, come as no surprise. And there's nothing you can do to change it other than playing well, and in those moments putting the ball in the back of the net. But he missed those chances because he's a soccer player that missed those chances, not because he's an American soccer player that missed those chances. But that's not how people are going to perceive and look at you, even if they say it out loud or they don't.
He's getting a nice run of games here, though, because he scored in the previous match against Jesse Marsh's Leeds. They found something with him playing behind Lukaku in a more central role, so that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. So Liverpool did not play a Premier League match this weekend. Obviously, they were contesting the FA Cup final, so they got to sit back and watch Manchester City square off against West Ham. City were down 2-0 at the break. We wondered if this makeshift back line of theirs was going to bite them at some point in this title race, because remember, Walker, Stones, and Diaz are all out. Nathan Ake also battling fitness issues. And sure enough, Fernandinho, who's having to play center back, had an absolute shocker. And of course, Ederson, God forbid he ever comes up with a big save. So they were down 2-0 at the half. They did rally to get it to 2-2. And then Riyad Mahrez had a penalty in the closing minutes, which would have won it, but it was saved. So it ended 2-2. A win would have effectively clinched the Premier League title. So they're disappointed they didn't get the victory. But that point is very valuable because it keeps it in their hands, even if Liverpool were to win out. And we're taping this on a Monday, comes out on Tuesday. Liverpool on Tuesday are away to Southampton. And then at the weekend, Liverpool home to Wolves, City home to Aston Villa. So City just have to beat Aston Villa at home, and the title is theirs, which I'm 95% sure they will.
It's theirs.
So you think City all the way?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that they sacrificed was if they had won, would it have already been over?
Well, they would have had
mathematically, or no?
They would have had a 3-point lead. It would have made it where they would have given the goal difference.
But we wouldn't have had the guard of honor or whatever they call it.
And they would have only needed a point against.
Oh, okay, so no, yeah, okay. Well, either way, we're not getting the corridor of honor. What do they call the thing where if you won it, then the opposition does that thing?
I do want to talk about, there's an interesting narrative about Pep that surfaced. Now, the less nuanced version of it is Patrice Evra came out and said Pep doesn't want any big personalities on his team. And Pep shot back with, we kicked your ass in 2 Champions League finals, shut the hell up. And that was that. But there's a more nuanced version of that conversation. There's a guy I've mentioned before on this podcast, Tostão, who's this legendary Brazilian player turned analyst. He loves Pep. But he wrote an interesting column recently, I thought, in talking about how when Pep's managerial career began, he had Messi. And it was this, that Barcelona team was this perfect blend of a team that was brilliant collectively and had the greatest individual player of our time. And Pep gave him the platform to do all the amazing things that he did. And as Pep's career has gone along as a manager, first with Bayern, and now it's become really pronounced with Manchester City, it's really been skewed more to the collective side, the system. You almost feel like the players are interchangeable. They're robots. He's almost like a guy playing a video game and moving pieces around. And you look at Kevin De Bruyne, to the extent that Manchester City have a superstar, it's De Bruyne. Now, we know he's not Messi, but he is to this City team what Messi, I guess, was to those Barcelona teams. And he goes out, he scores 4 goals in a game against Wolves, which speaks to that, him being the star of that team. But that performance was bracketed by him getting subbed out in the second half of that second leg against Real Madrid, which surprised people because they thought De Bruyne had reached the stature where, regardless of how well he's playing, he's the guy you want on the field during the critical moments. And then this penalty against West Ham, the fact that it's not a no-brainer that De Bruyne is going to grab that ball and take that penalty is kind of notable to me. And and this has been an issue for City the last couple of years. They don't have a regular penalty taker. Anytime there's a big penalty in a crucial moment, you're not sure who's going to grab the ball and take it, which I think speaks to this larger culture surrounding that team where there isn't a guy, everything is sort of interchangeable. And so I don't know, I've said a lot there, but what do you make of it? Is that an interesting aspect of Pep as a manager?
I understand what you're saying. And I actually agree that there is something to it, even though it was said in maybe not the best way. You mentioned Messi, right? So while he is the biggest name, and certainly there are no names bigger, nobody's going to look at him as a personality. So he has always been very quiet, very unassuming, the anti-hero, if you will. Nobody's ever going to not recognize how good he is. But I'm trying to think, have there ever been players that have publicly, off Pep? In the Zlatan or the Cristiano or the, I don't know, who's a bigger type of, I'm talking about big personalities that don't care who you are. And I do think that is by design in what Pep wants. And I'm not saying he couldn't handle that, but I just think that there is a dynamic that he has recognized over the years works for him and works well. And that larger than life type of personality, I would think that Jurgen Klopp would be better equipped to handle that type of person than a Pep Guardiola. And it's not, and again, this isn't a criticism of either of them, but you got to be, and it's not that they're not secure, but you have to be a certain type to not only be able to handle that, but be able to harness it and use it to your benefit, even though you might look bad in those moments, it is actually to the benefit of your team. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but that's how I think.
Well, and this conversation is occurring against the backdrop of City signing Erling Haaland.
Yep.
So, from a footballing standpoint, he's a traditional center forward. They didn't have one of those this season, so there's going to be an adjustment there, certainly. But I think more so it's just, as you mentioned, having that personality, a guy that certainly if there's a big penalty next season, Erling Haaland is grabbing the ball and taking it. And if Pep ever tries to sub him off in a big moment, Erling Haaland's going to look at him and be like, What are you, joking? So now he does have that sort of player to manage, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic moving forward.
And when he arrives, it will be interesting if he accommodates and adjusts to the situation, or they accommodate and adjust to the situation. Because while he's not necessary, because they have proven that they can be incredibly successful without him, he is literally filling a spot on the field that is a void and has been a void. And I think that's why they are doing it. And so he will come in knowing, given who he is, given the money and all of that he is there to be that star up top. And to your point, he's a big personality, and he likes to go out and he likes to say things and do things. Maybe not to the Zlatan level, but he it might be interesting when you plug that type of personality into an established dynamic. And again, who changes more, and how much do they ultimately adjust?
The top 4 race has taken a major turn. It started with that midweek game between Tottenham and Arsenal. Tottenham won 3-0. I did not like that penalty decision, by the way. I thought Arsenal came out well. They were the better team in the first 30 minutes or so, and then they had a tough call go against them, that penalty decision, which gave Tottenham their first goal. But then Arsenal imploded from there. Everything else that happened after that was a self-inflicted wound, including the holding red card, which I thought was the correct decision. So Tottenham won that game 3-0, which made it a 1-point gap. And then they went out and won their game this past weekend against Burnley. So Arsenal took the field today. Like I said, we're taping this on a Monday. They were away to Newcastle with all the pressure in the world, and they ended up losing 2-0. So now it's Tottenham in the driver's seat heading into the last weekend because they have a 2-point lead and a healthy goal difference advantage. So they only need a point away to Norwich, and they would get it. So Arsenal, who are home to Everton, need a win and a Spurs loss. So it looks like Tottenham are going to finish in the top 4. That is going to be a bitter pill to swallow. I'm on a text chain with some Arsenal fans. They're freaking out about it right now. It's quite the development.
It's not good. It's not good. And I mentioned we talked to Matt Turner, and he might be going to a team that's not playing in Champions League.
Which I was discussing that with him off camera before we started the interview. Yep, it appears so. Meanwhile, the relegation race, also some interesting developments there. As I just mentioned, Burnley lost to Tottenham. That opened the door for Leeds, although it was looking like Leeds were not going to take advantage. They were trailing Brighton at home, and then lo and behold, they get a stoppage time equalizer. Ellen Road erupts. That point nudges Leeds above Burnley, so they're outside the bottom 3 right now. Burnley are 18th, but keep in mind, Burnley have a much better goal difference. So Burnley have 2 games left. Leeds only have 1. Burnley played midweek away to Aston Villa. As soon as that match kicks off, live standings, Leeds will drop back into the bottom 3. Burnley will be above them. Burnley can play for a draw in that game. And then the final weekend, Burnley home to Newcastle, Leeds away to Brentford. So I don't know if Jesse Marsch is out of the woods here yet. I think there's still going to be some twists and turns in this relegation race. What do you think?
And while they did at the death get a point and a much needed point, there were people cheering in the stands, for Bielsa and
it's gotten
out.
It had gotten a bit toxic there. The fans are starting to get on Jesse, and that was a really poor performance. And you're right, as that game wore on, the fans started to, chant Bielsa's name, and so
I know I'm biased, but what a bunch of ass. Man, oh man, jeez. Look, Jesse came in, and again, you shouldn't necessarily ever be given the benefit of the doubt, and there were some really, really good and incredibly exciting types of results here. But from the moment that he took the job, he knew that this was going to be a difficult situation, and that he was handed not a great team or situation. But for Jesse Marsch, he is in this moment where I do this course that I'm taking with FIFA, and we talk about businesses, and we go and we look at the cultures behind businesses, and people talk about like a lot of soccer teams, to be quite honest with you, the culture that they want to cultivate, and they want to do this, and there's a lot of romantic notions when it comes to it. Jesse Marsch is in a situation right now where he is all hands on deck. He doesn't worry about the long term. He doesn't care about any of that BS when it comes to establishing the culture right now. He is just plugging holes and trying to get himself and this team to the point where they then can concentrate on the culture right now. And that's such a different mindset. That's such a different coaching situation. We were talking about Pep. It's so diametrically opposed to what is happening to a Man City or something, and the way that they go about coaching and dealing with their culture over there as to what Jesse Marsch is doing. But the fans, they want this team to stay up for obvious reasons, and Jesse Marsch is in the hot seat right now, and it's going to be hard. And again, I said this a couple weeks ago about Jesse Marsch. My fear is that if Leeds and Jesse Marsh go down, that he's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And I want him to be able to implement some more expansive and romantic type of notions when it comes to the culture, but he can't do that now. He can't do it unless he gets to that summer and then goes on and has a year to look at being in the Premier League. But it's going to take some doing.
By the way, the Burnley and Leeds results meant that Everton could have clinched safety with a win over Brentford. The champagne was on ice, tremendous atmosphere at Goodison Park. They get an early goal, and then it all unravels. There was this crazy sequence, a penalty shot at one end not given, and then it's cleared the other way, and an Everton player ends up getting a straight red card, so they had to play down a man for most of the match, and they actually had another player sent off in the closing minutes. They lose 3-2 at home, so Everton unable to seal the deal here, so they're still in this conversation. I think they'll be okay. They have 2 games left, home to Crystal Palace on Thursday, then away to Arsenal, but you never know. I mean, their inability to kind of seal the deal here has been pretty amazing to watch.
Well, for those that that like to point to relegation and the the incredible drama that surrounds relegation, this is a wonderful weekend, and this points it out.
I was going to go there. I was going to tweak you. I was going to say when we watch all this,
it's not so you like others misinterpret what I'm saying. I have lived relegation. I have lived that power. I have lived that energy. I have lived that pressure. I have lived that joy. I have lived, to a certain extent, that pain of what could possibly happen. So I understand it better than most, exactly what it means and what it can bring to the players, to the competition, and therefore people that are watching it. Like I've said time and time again, I just don't have to have it in my life, but I will watch, and I'm excited, and that there is this drama that is unfolding and happening on the end of the season, and we will see the agony of defeat and the thrill of victory on display this weekend. And we hope when that music stops that Jesse Marsh and Leeds, well, I hope that Jesse Marsh and Leeds have a chair to sit in.
The Bundesliga came to an end this past weekend. Let's put a ribbon on that.
Who won?
Bayern had already clinched the title.
Really?
Their final game, 2-2 away to Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg, a nice farewell for John Brooks. Any thoughts on where he might end up next? We know it won't be with the U.S. national team.
I mean, I think that there will be suitors, but Bundesliga, maybe, I guess, because he has the longevity. But there's a reason why he struggled this year, and for national team not getting called in, and obviously in the Bundesliga, it hasn't been great for him. But he's got a pedigree, and there will be teams out there that want him.
Robert Lewandowski scored in this game, his 35th Bundesliga goal. Interesting story brewing with him. He has one more year in his Bayern contract. He's already told him he is not going to re-sign, and he clearly expects them to sell him this summer. He even said, this is probably my farewell. But Bayern are not on that page at all. They said, no, he has one more year in his contract. We expect him to fulfill it. Lewandowski, from what you read, has his heart set on Barcelona, which would be an interesting move. For him, it's funny. It's not really the sort of move I think Barcelona should be looking to make. Mm-hmm. I still kind of feel like they should be in rebuilding mode and younger players, etc. But Mbappe is going to go to Real Madrid. Haaland has gone to City, and I could see Barcelona feeling like they have to get in the mix here and make a splash of their own. And it's very easy to talk yourself into.
How old's Lewandowski? Oh.
I want to say he's 34.
The only reason I'm asking is, what is a 34-ish type of player? Albeit one of the elites of the world, goal scorers of the world, what does he fetch on the market with 1 year left in his contract?
He, by the way, is 33. He turns 34 in August.
All right. So he'll be 34 when he starts whatever season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. He's a great player, but at that age, and knowing that he has one more year left in his contract, that's why probably Bayern might keep him, even knowing that he would walk away for free, because they think it's worth it. One more year of Lewandowski is worth more than whatever they would fetch in the transfer market. It's not like an Mbappe PSG situation where they turn down $200 million and are not going to lose him for free. It wouldn't be anything like that. But yeah, I mean, like as I say, Barcelona, it might not make all that much sense, but it's easy to talk yourself into the guy that's the reigning 2-time FIFA Player of the Year. And so, it's
always interesting when you watch players that are on that balance where they're playing for their future and they're playing out their year and their contract. I never was in that position, but it's dangerous too, because if you were to get hurt, you have nothing on the other side, and that's it. And your value would dramatically decrease if there was a value at all, if it was a serious enough injury. But it's fun to watch players bet on themselves, and I always hope that it works out for them if they're playing out there that year, and there is that duel between them and the club, and whoever blinks first, or if nobody blinks, and you just say, fine, we're just going to take this to the end, because as a team, you risk giving away an asset for absolutely nothing. But as a player, you also risk, every time you step on the field, possibly getting hurt, and therefore, if and when that payday comes at the end of playing out your career, it's not there because you're hurt. So we'll see.
Dortmund beat Hertha Berlin 2-1. Holland scored from the penalty spot, his final goal in his final game for Dortmund. In terms of top four, there was some drama here because Leipzig were losing at home to Arminia Bielefeld, and Leverkusen and Freiburg were 1-1 in the closing minutes. Had Freiburg scored at that point, they would have leapfrogged Leipzig, but instead what ended up happening is right around the same time in stoppage time of both games, Leipzig got an equalizer and Leverkusen scored against Freiburg. So in the end, Leipzig got fourth. The Champions League teams there are Bayern, Dortmund, Leverkusen, and Leipzig. Lots of drama at the bottom of the table. I just mentioned that Hertha Berlin lost 2-1 to Dortmund. That opened the door for Stuttgart. They got a stoppage time winner against Cologne, and that meant they leapfrogged Hertha Berlin into safety. Hertha Berlin drop into the playoffs. They'll face Hamburg. And yeah, our American friend Matarazzo was going nuts.
Yeah, as he should.
This was gonna be the game where I was gonna tweak you and say, hey, when you see these incredible scenes, doesn't that make you say, hey, we should get this in American soccer as well? But you already addressed that earlier in the pod, so you beat me to the punch.
Well,
it was like an Eminem Papadoc situation. You knew what I was gonna say about you. So
because behind that tweak is the thought that we don't have any scenes or we have no passion or anything like that. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. It's fun. I loved it. I enjoyed watching it, and congratulations to them. What's happening with Pepi and Augsburg? They're still in, right? Everything's good with them?
Yes, but a pretty disappointing half season for Pepi. So where does he go from here? Would you like to see him stay at Augsburg, seek a different team?
I mean, if you had to rate this or judge this, and I know it's still kind of early days, and this is a young, incredibly inexperienced player who kind of burst on the scene and had this move and moved to a completely different country and culture and language and all that, and has had to adjust both on and off the field. But it's been a disaster. I mean, when he goes to the ATMs, that's fine, and that will continue to be fine. But this doesn't necessarily need to be put up as, hey, this is what possibly could happen, and this is a warning, and beware that it doesn't always go great, because I still think that he has something to say going forward. But if you're Augsburg, you're still right back where you started with. Do you believe that he's going to come good next year? I mean, you've seen enough of him where you know what he is, and do you believe that he is going to be that savior that he was purported to be when he came over, any more so now than 6 months ago? I don't think so. I think that they're going back out of the market, if they're being allowed to, and saying, we got to dip back in and find somebody else now. And so, I hope it's different, and I hope that Pepi, with a summer and then a full preseason and then a full season, is more in the rhythm and swing of things. But this has not been good.
In Spain, most everything is settled there. Real Madrid already clinched the title, and we now know the top four. Sevilla got the point they needed away to Atletico to secure a top four finish. Interesting developments in the Getafe-Barcelona match. The two teams took the field knowing that a draw would have suited both their interests. Barcelona hoping to clinch second, which would put them in the Spanish Super Cup next season, which is competition they wanted to be in. And Getafe, with a point, would have clinched safety. And so it was a bit of a West Germany, Austria 1982 scenario where nobody did anything and ended 0-0. So it was a bit of an embarrassment. Folks in Spain were kind of lamenting that. But
now the Super Cup features who?
So it's first and second in the league, and then the champion and runner-up from the Copa del Rey.
Okay, got it. So it's just two games, potentially.
Yeah, semifinal and final in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that one. All right.
Yeah. So Real Madrid are the champs. Barcelona clinched second. Atletico and Sevilla, they're still jockeying there for third and fourth, but they'll both be in the Champions League next season. There was some drama, though, at the other end of the table involving a good friend of ours. So Cadiz played to a 1-1 draw against a heavily rotated Real Madrid. Cadiz actually missed a penalty in the second half of that game that would have won it. And then Stu Holden's Mallorca got a late winner against Rayo Vallecano, which meant they leapfrogged Cadiz in the table. So going into the last weekend, they are outside the bottom three. Cadiz are in 18th. So, I mean, our good friend has been sort of end of the couch here watching this game.
We don't bring it up with him because it's on such an edge right now, and a fine edge right now, that we're just, whatever happens, and hopefully it's good things for. Yeah, but there's times where you needle your friends, and you enjoy doing that, but this is not the time.
Serie A is the other great title race. It could have been over this weekend because AC Milan beat Atalanta 2-0, Rafael Leão, and then Theo Hernandez with an incredible goal. If you get a chance, folks, go on YouTube and watch this. It ran the length of the field, phenomenal. So that result meant that had Inter not won their game, it would have been all over. But give Inter credit. They went out and beat Cagliari 3-1. 2 goals by Lautaro Martinez, who has 21. I will say, in that inevitable compare and contrast we do between Brazil and Argentina, that's something Argentina has that Brazil doesn't, which is a prolific center forward. Lautaro has really turned into a big-time goal scorer, 21 Serie A goals this season. And so it's going to come down to the final weekend. It's in AC Milan's hands. They have a 2-point edge and the goal difference tiebreaker. So all they need is a point away to Sassuolo. Inter are home to Sampdoria. Inter need a win and an AC Milan loss, and then they would take the title. The top 4 is set. It'll be Napoli and Juventus, the other 2 teams. There's some drama at the bottom of the table involving Cagliari and Salernitana, but I'll get to that next week, and I will be here all day. In Ligue 1, by the way, Luis didn't put it in the rundown, but PSG beat Montpellier 4-0. Messi scored 2 goals.
Oh, well done. By the way, Lorenzo Insigne, last game and said goodbye and everything. And, he's off to Toronto. Good luck up there.
Mbappe says he'll announce his future within the next couple of weeks. It's going to be Real Madrid.
Okay.
The only real drama in France is there's Champions League spots, Monaco, Marseille, and Rennes battling for it. Again, we'll discuss that all next week. One team that's safe is Tra.
It's so much fun.
This upcoming
Who's going to take Mbappe's spot?
That's interesting. You're hearing all sorts of players linked.
I mean, are they going big? Or, I mean, there's even been talks about them divesting themselves and moving on, and the PSG experiment is over. In
the immediate
and all that.
aftermath of that Champions League defeat to Real Madrid, it seemed like there was no appetite to continue this kind of star sort of approach. But I don't think they could help themselves. I've even heard Robert Lewandowski. You hear Mo Salah, and
might be interesting.
So we'll see who PSG end up with.
Okay.
We have this week the first of our 3 men's European finals. Eintracht Frankfurt against Rangers at the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium in Seville. That's Timmy Chandler against James Sands. So we'll see who can prevail in that one. And we also have this upcoming Saturday, the women's UEFA Champions League final, Barcelona versus Lyon in Turin. Mm-hmm. We've talked some about Barcelona on this podcast the last couple of weeks. They did complete their La Liga campaign with a perfect 30 wins in 30 games. Right. And so this is being celebrated. They're the greatest team ever. But you mentioned this last time I brought it up that, sometimes the lack of parity in the women's game is an issue for you. And it's something that I think, the women's game needs to sort of address. And you still feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, it's not anybody's fault. In the same way when the US is crushing everybody, it's not great, but it's not their fault. They play what's in front of them. In the same way that Barcelona, that is going to put the money and resources into their women's team, they're going to reap the rewards, especially when others aren't even coming close to doing that. And this is an incredible team, and they won it going away. Kind of like what happens in La Liga with Barcelona and Real Madrid. So that they are so good shouldn't necessarily be a surprise, but it doesn't mean that it's not worthy of praise and applause and attention for what they are doing, especially as it relates to the world of women's soccer and the need for more money and the need for more resources, especially when there is that association. We talked earlier about the association with MLS teams, but I think because so many of these teams around the world are sporting clubs, shall we say, and all of that entails, I think that there's a much more ready type of connection that can happen there with these teams and the existing infrastructure that they have. So it's just about them oftentimes changing perception and changing culture and making it a priority. And with even minimal types of investment, they can make great strides very, very, very quickly, as is the case here. But this is one of those teams where many years from now, when other teams come up and there are more resources, they'll look back and they'll say, "Do you remember that team? How good they were?" And people that are like us will say, "Yes, but you also have to take into account the reality of the time and what was going on." And that's a backhanded compliment at times, but there is a reality to when you have all of the resources, when you have all of the money, when you have all of the players, stands to reason you are going to be better than those that you are playing against. So, but the crowds that we have seen too, you hope that there's a big crowd here for this. That's Barcelona-Lyon on Saturday, May 21st, I think it is.
Lyon have Katarina Macario and Lindsay Horan, so there's some U.S. national team connections there. And keep an eye on Spain at the international level. They gave the U.S. all they could handle. Remember in that round of 16 game at the last World Cup?
When we were watching Mosse, I remember talking to you about it, where it was just they weren't quite ready for prime time, especially in the attacking, not even the attacking third, just in the box. But their tactical ability and their possession, their technical ability was something that was way up at the top as far as I'm concerned. So if they ever get that together from a national team perspective up top, look out, and that ruthlessness and that danger, that consistent danger up top, and then you pair it with that type of possession that they have and the technique that they have and the tactical aplomb that they showed, look out.
That is it.
All right. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back. It's time for Ask Alexi. Use that hashtag out there on all the social media platforms and send us your questions, comments, or concerns out there. Or you call us up at 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297 and leave a message on the hotline. I think we got some Twitter questions this week, right?
Yeah. First up, at Sales on Sounders, he says, think we can pull U.S. Open Cup up to or near FA Cup status? I believe.
You believes. Okay. Well, up to FA Cup status, not anytime soon, but I do think that one thing that we have seen, especially over the last couple of weeks, is there is an appetite for this tournament. There is an appetite, especially because of the population and the community that exists in while we call it lower division soccer. It really isn't. It's just professional soccer out there. And I think the opportunity to see that competition between leagues and all of the pride that comes with that, there's something there. But this is going to be a labor of love. This is going to be a continual work in progress, getting better and better. And let's be honest, the interest right now is almost exclusively relative to the perceived David and Goliath of MLS and USL teams when they are playing. And we're seeing MLS teams that are going to be the dominant team going forward into the round of 16, and I'm assuming beyond right now. But what holds an interest for me and a lot of people out there are these quote-unquote smaller teams finding success and coming up against these big teams, and that Cinderella story. And once that's gone, as opposed to FA Cup, where, yes, that is certainly a part of it and part of the allure and the love and the romance of it, there is still an interest going forward, even when those Cinderella teams get knocked out. I'm not sure how much of an interest there is going forward after those Cinderella teams get knocked out. So I hope they don't. I hope the teams continue on. Money helps. The attention helps. I think ESPN has done a good job, so kudos to them in terms of not just broadcasting the whole thing, but even putting some shoulder programming, including Hercules Gomez and Sebastian Salazar, who did a
whip around,
red channel, red zone type of thing there for like 7 hours. They were on the air, and credit to them individually and for ESPN for doing that and providing that type of coverage for, let's be honest, a tournament that needs that type of coverage and that type of attention. So yeah, I'm not sure it's going to happen anytime soon. MLS teams won shootout up there. San Jose went up to Seattle and beat Seattle. So there weren't a whole lot of surprises out there. For the most part, your MLS teams won.
Did I see Detroit City crash out on penalties?
Well, crash, but they lost at home. My Detroit City FC went out of the Lamar Hunt Open Cup 2022 on penalties up there at Keyworth Stadium in Hamtramck, Michigan, out there in Detroit. So yeah, but valiant effort, and it's a brutal and harsh way to go out, as everybody knows. But I'm still proud of their effort.
The game that got my attention in the round of 32 was Nashville-Atlanta. Nashville coming from 2-0 down to beat Atlanta 3-2. That was pretty dramatic.
And I will be in Nashville later on this week, so we will be broadcasting an MLS game from there. So I'll be heading off to the great city of Nashville. And we've been there before to do MLS games. This will be our first time in the brand new stadium, the 30,000 seat stadium. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. And that was the site of that Nashville comeback in front of their own there, and big result for folks there. And it's hard. We talked a couple weeks ago about Garth Lagerwey, the president of the Seattle Sounders, getting on the field and literally explaining to the fans what CONCACAF Champions League is. There also has to be an educational process in order to make this thing bigger, of the fans, from the clubs. And if you don't take it seriously, as I'm talking about teams, if you don't take it seriously, why should we take it seriously in terms of those of us watching or supporters? If you're not putting a good team out there, or if you're not talking about it, or if you're even talking about it in the way, for example, that interim coach Chad Ashton over there in DC was talking about, how we're looking past this and this is just a diversion, if you will, from the task at hand, then don't ask us to take it seriously if you as a club are not taking it seriously. And some clubs do, and to be quite honest, some clubs don't.
In terms of the round of 16, we have an El Tráfico to look forward to. Also, NYCFC versus New England, a rematch of last year's MLS playoffs. So, I'm enjoying the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Sure.
It's been fun.
What's your take on Raphinha? As a Leeds United fan, it's been a joy to watch him play. How do you see him contributing in Qatar for Brazil? Will Leeds sell him this summer? If so, to whom and for how much? Wow, a lot of questions there.
Well, let me ask you that. What position does he play?
Right wing.
Okay, not right back or anything like that, right?
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. I'm a huge fan of Raphinha. James, I'm sorry to tell you, but part of me wants Leeds to get relegated because Raphinha has been linked to some bigger clubs, including Barcelona, and the buyout clause goes way down if they get relegated. If they were to stay up, then you'd have to negotiate a price with Leeds, and I think they might play hardball. How dare you? And I want him to...
How dare you? That's worse than Luis not watching American football, is you just don't like Jesse Marsh and you don't like Leeds, and you're rooting for Leeds to go down.
From a Brazil standpoint, Raphinha more or less represents a turning point in this cycle. For much of this cycle, including in the Copa America, which we covered, Brazil was depending on Neymar to a very uncomfortable degree. He had all the creative load on his shoulders, and everybody came out of that tournament wondering if can this formula possibly work at the World Cup? And Tucci looked at that and said, no, it can. I need to inject some creativity into this team. And so he started calling up Raphinha, who first had some really good substitute appearances, and then he got his first start in a game home to Uruguay, which is kind of a before and after moment for Brazil in their qualifying campaign. Up to that point, they had been a workmanlike, pragmatic team, and then they went out that day and beat Uruguay 4-1, and that scoreline doesn't do it justice. Muslera stood in his head. Suarez scored a late consolation goal, but on balance of play, that game should have been like 7-0. It was one of the best performances I've seen from Brazil in years. Raphinha scored 2 goals. Neymar had 1 and 2 assists. The two had a wonderful understanding with each other. You could tell Neymar really liked having another creative player on the field that could help him. And then since then, you've also had the emergence of Anthony, who's going to be competing with Raphinha for the starting spot on the right wing, and Vinicius Jr. on the left. Neymar has moved into more of a central position. He either plays right behind the center forward or sometimes even as a false nine. So you can fit Neymar, Vinicius, and Raphinha or Anthony all on the field. And all of a sudden, it's starting to look like a pretty saucy Brazil team where Neymar is going to have some help here, and the creative department isn't going to have everything on his shoulders. So yeah, I mean, long story short, Raphinha will definitely be in Qatar. He might be starting, and I'm excited about it because I think he's a great player that could have a very good tournament. Now, the right back thing you mentioned, listen, the good folks at Fox Soccer have to be careful here because I am the resident Brazilian at Fox Soccer. So anytime we do anything that's Brazil related, everybody assumes I must have had a hand in it. And there have been a couple of weird things lately. After Rodrygo scored those 2 goals against Manchester City in the Champions League, they did this thing of like, where does this put Rodrygo in the number 9 pecking order for Brazil, which Rodrygo is not a number 9. He's a winger, so that didn't make much sense. And then they did another thing here where they wanted to show how valuable this Brazil team is. And so they put together an 11 and took their market value from Transfer Market, I believe.
Right.
But they had Fabinho as a right back, which is a position he played early in his career, but hasn't played in years. And so I was getting tweets about that from like, Mosse, what are you thinking here? You must have put this together and you screwed up. And I had nothing to do with it. So, Well,
if you're the resident Brazilian, you got to take the good with the bad, my friend. All right. Whether you're involved or not, if there's anything Brazilian that goes out from a Fox perspective, it's going to have your name attached to it.
Does Alex Calvert still work at Fox?
Yes. Yeah, I think he's still here.
So presumably it was either him or Francis, right?
We'll get to the bottom of it. Do you want people gone? Are you calling for their heads? Is that what's happening here?
Suspension would be. I don't. But yeah, so I said I would address this on the pod, and I just did.
Okay, but you love him. You love Raphinha.
I do. I love Raphinha.
Okay, do you think he's going to start? You guys have so many good players.
Yeah, it's like I said, him and Anthony, it's kind of a 50-50. Okay. We'll see. It's interesting. They're both probably going to switch teams this summer. Anthony's at Ajax, but there's talk about Erik ten Hag bringing him to Manchester United. So a lot of it will depend on which one settles better at their new club and what kind of form they're in come November.
Okay. So you don't know whether he's going to start, but you do hate America and you want Leeds to go down, right?
I would love it.
Okay,
get Raphinha out of there.
Okay. Should we move on?
Yes. I'd like Raphinha at a club that isn't managed by an American. The guy who organizes huddles after a game. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then finally, this would be the fun one we do each week. At CR Foreign Legion asks, so it's been 3 years since you released your last solo record. Is there a new record in the works? Will the Gypsies ever reunite? This is a music question for you.
Okay, so with regards to the Gypsies, I played in a band called the Gypsies a long time ago, not to be confused by the Band of Gypsies that was to your point, Jimi Hendrix's band. I haven't been in a band, the Gypsies, since the late 80s, early 90s, and I didn't put any work out with them. I've since put out lots of albums and continue to put out albums, but all under my own name. I am in the process of finishing up and mixing a new batch of songs. We used to call them albums back in my day, Mosse. I don't know what you and the kids call them nowadays, but yeah, that'll be out just in time for the fall and the World Cup. I'm pretty proud of this group of songs. Everybody that went, any type of artist went through the pandemic has a lot of material. A lot of it's crap, but I, like others, continue to write and continue to record, and I have a batch of stuff that I think is pretty good so I will release that later on this year for all 3 people, including my mom, sometimes my mom, that actually want to hear it. For those that maybe don't know, music has been a huge part of my life. It's something that I've done even before I was kicking a soccer ball, and certainly after I've been kicking a ball, and I love to do it. I love to write and record, and it's been a couple years. I was on a clip there for a good 3 or 4 or 5 albums there, where every couple of years I was putting out something. And so now it's been 3 or 4 years that I have put out something. So yes, thank you, CR Foreign Legion, for asking about the music. It'll be out, and who knows, maybe even feature at some point during the World Cup in the things that we do. I always try to force them to use some of the stuff that I have. But yeah, it's straight ahead rock pop type of stuff. Maybe even maybe even a little political stuff here. I don't know. Never know. Never know. We'll see when it comes out.
We've come full circle on this podcast. We began by discussing Paul McCartney, and we end.
There we go.
Discussing your
music
upcoming
bookends.
Yes.
There we go. Me and Sir Paul.
Yes.
I'm sure he's incredibly proud of the association. Anything else, Mosse?
I just want to note, Luis Aguilar, very agitated today. He's been running around the studio.
Really?
Oh, the Cubano.
Oh,
Are we doing that?
Okay.
Was I not supposed to mention it now?
Well, it's one for the road if you read your thing here. So there we go. All right, ready? We'll end it on he's agitated, right? He's very agitated.
Okay. So pick it up.
I just want to.
Just want to mention, Luis Aguilar, very agitated today. He's been running around the studio, and I have a feeling it's because we have something special coming up in the One for the Road segment.
I don't face him. You face him. And so he's off of my shoulder, so I don't see him, but I feel that there has been motion and movement throughout the day. And so I don't know what is going on, but maybe we'll have something here at the end. All right, we'll take a real quick break. We'll come back for the end of our show, and I'll give you my one for the road. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back, and it is the end of a show, and at the end of each and every show, I give you my one for the road here. And I was going to talk about some things, but then in the break, I was informed that we are going to pay off a bit that we had last week. You know, everybody is always concerned about my my diet and what I'm eating and what I'm not eating, and oftentimes not just concerned, but perplexed, and I would say even irritated at what I like and what I don't like when it comes to things like bacon and other foods that just are ridiculous out there that I've talked about here. Last week, if you'll remember, somebody asked me about the Cubano sandwich, which I had never had that I know of, and certainly never voluntarily had gone and ordered it. You, Mosse, have had a Cubano sandwich before, right?
I have a couple times, but I'm...
Okay, you're not a connoisseur.
Not a connoisseur.
And so evidently we've gone out there and we are going to hear on live podcasting, radio, YouTube, all the different things that we have out there. And when I say live, you're listening to it after the fact, but it's live here for us. We are going to taste test the Cubano sandwich. Do we know where we got this thing here?
I don't know the name of
Oh, for God's sake. We can't even, possibly get some. What if I really, really like it? Does it say it on it?
If you like it, I'll tell you. Yeah.
VersaillesCuban.com. Versailles.
Oh, we got some fries too.
Comida Cubana. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
Do we know exactly what is on the Cubano sandwich? Or we're going to find out together here. All right. It smells wonderful. That's always good, right? It comes in kind of a, ooh. See, here's the thing. This is the branding and how you market something is really, really important. So how this was explained to me, I think last week, did not do it justice here. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see over here, it definitely has the ham that they were talking about, pickles, maybe some cheese in there, Mosse, would you say?
Yep.
Some sort of sauce there, and it maybe some mustardish type of thing. I will tell you that it looks a whole lot better than it was described to me, in that I am actually excited to eat this. So here we go. First bite of a Cubano. All right. I have thoughts already. So I think I might have talked about this, Mosse. And please excuse my slobbering. You're sitting in your car or on your run right now and you're hearing me slobber into your ear. But I might have talked about this before, but the ratio on a sandwich, and this is basically a sandwich, it's heated up, kind of a panini type of thing. But the ratio of meat to the bread and the rest of the sandwich, I think, is crucial. And so when I bite into this thing, I mean, if you can see there is a heavy slab right there in terms of the ham. I think it's ham, right? Ham. And it's almost too much. You ever seen those advertisements or actually had those deli sandwiches where it's just chalked pile with meat and then there's basically just two small flimsy pieces of bread on the other end? That is ridiculous. It's horrible. And I would even submit to you that it's dangerous. This might be on the verge, certainly not at the height of those deli sandwiches, but it might be too much meat. And I know there's people out there that are going, how can there possibly be too much meat? There can be too much meat in that it throws it out of whack, and the balance and the equilibrium of a sandwich is completely thrown out of whack. And there are people there, again, that are on their runs or in their car or wherever you listen to this, that are nodding at their head saying, I know exactly what he's saying. Even if he can't quite articulate it in the best possible way, they know what I'm saying when it comes to the girth and of the meat in a sandwich. There's something else in here though, because there's a ham and then there's another type of meat in there too, Mosse. Mosse, can you look that up on your little machine there and find out exactly what is in this? Because it is good. I will say that it is good, but again, it might be too much meat for each bite and mouthful that I am taking. But I'm going to eat it anyway, so it's pretty good.
Are we stretching this segment out here? I mean,
are we boring you, Mosse?
It's again, I'm on record as saying that this is Luis Aguilar trying to recapture that wings magic. That was an unforgettable segment of podcasting. And
well, do you like it?
I do. Delicious.
It's good, right? And I didn't think that the pickle and I guess it's mustardy type of thing, and you can see it right there. If you want to, I don't know. Anyway, I didn't think that it was going to be as good, but I think it's a real key component to the Cubano. So yeah, I'm a fan. If I was in an area that had a sandwich shop that sold these, either a Cuban place or any place else, I would definitely look and say that is something that I would like to eat. So thank you for introducing me to this. And what?
Very quickly, someone brought up, are you eating the sandwich sideways?
Oh yeah, hold on.
Yeah, I've taken a couple of weird bites.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are watching, you will already have noticed this. For those of you that are listening, I'm going to try to explain to you the utter horror that is occurring here in the studio. Okay, now this is the sandwich, and I know you're listening, so you can't see it, but this is just a regular panini type of sandwich. Most human beings that I have encountered in my lifetime would take this sandwich in their hands, either one hand or two hand, and they would eat it. And since it was cut in two, most normal people eat that sandwich starting at the end where the slice was made, and then they make their way down to the heel. Usually that's what happens. There might be some that turn it the opposite way. But never in my life, and I've lived a pretty long life, have I ever encountered a human being that took one of these cut panini halves and decided that it was appropriate, either privately or publicly, to eat the sandwich from the side. And yet, my friends, I kid you not, that David Mosse, as much as I love him, is evidently one of those people. And it only proves that he's not human. Because, hold your sandwich up here so I can see this thing, Mosse. Who the hell eats a sandwich like that? That is ridiculous. It looks like, when in Jaws where they see the bite marks and stuff like that, it looks like that a shark has taken a bite out of your surfboard there. And that is, it doesn't matter how good the sandwich is, you've desecrated the Cubano right there just by the way that you decided to eat it. And look, far be it for me to tell you how you want to eat your sandwich or anything else out there. But when it's done right in front of me, and that you don't even acknowledge that I'm even talking to you, it's just compounding the pain that I feel right now. Is this something that happens in your family? I mean, do you do this? Is this a Mosse type of thing?
No. I was just kind of examining the sandwich, and
you decided that was where you were going to dive in?
Mm-hmm.
This is nuts. Listen, if you are still with us, okay, and believe me, I recognize that most of you have moved on from this insanity. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the State of the Union podcast. Thank you, Luis, for bringing us this incredible food and the Cubano, and for all the work that you do. We will be back here again, same time, same place next week. Please send in your comments, questions, and concerns, whether it's the Ask Alexi hashtag on the platforms or using our number, 657-549-2297. And believe me, if you want to talk about what I've just witnessed, and for those of you that watch this show, what you have just witnessed and what I have just described, please let me know. Because if I'm on base off base here, if I'm wrong here in terms of how to eat a sandwich, and I'm calling it a sandwich, but it's even a baguette. You're the French, the Francophile over there. If I were to give you a friggin' baguette, you're not going to bite into it on the side. Nobody does that. Anyway. If you disagree with me, and I'm sure that there are people out there that do, please let us know in terms of how to approach correctly as a human being living in 2022, eating a sandwich, and in this case, a panini type of sandwich. We'll be back same time, same place here in the State of the Union. Until then, and as always, au revoir, mon ami. Size the day. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.